Chris, I don't have a location for you, but thanks for waiting.
Hi guys, I'm in North Carolina. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, great. Where? Well, I don't want you to give away exactly, but if you're anywhere near Asheville, that's my favorite place in North Carolina.
It is very nice. Charlotte's nice too, if I will say that. But to start off, I really want to say thank you to you guys for being ambassadors for reason and standing up for what's right. You guys are a positive voice that is very needed right now. So thank you guys. I listen every week. Just to get into my question, I grew up in a pretty casual Christian family. We went to church on Sundays. We definitely had a Bible in the house. It wasn't dusted off very often. And then both my mother and my father were given pretty grim diagnoses within about 2 years of each other. My mother with breast cancer and my father with colon cancer. They both beat the diagnosis. They both are now cancer-free. They went to some of the best doctors in the country in Atlanta, Georgia. And, of course, thanked God instead.
Sure. Of
course,
this turned them very devout. They felt as though they had not been Christian enough. That was why they were given cancer, because they didn't love Jesus enough. And then because they promised that they would love Jesus harder, he actually took the cancer away.
Wow.
I moved to a new city. I grew up in Virginia, in a very rural area, coal country. And I moved to a new city for a job. And while I was here, of course, I didn't have that, constant Christian influence, because we didn't take the time on the weekends to go to church, because I hadn't really been raised like that. Saw a Joshua Feuerstein video on YouTube one day and decided for myself that is the last thing in this world that I want to be. I did not want to be in any group that he was considered someone that could speak for that group. So I found a Seth Andrews response video, which led me to the Unholy Trinity tour, which led me to you guys. So that was.
So you're sliding downhill. You started with Seth and you made it to us. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. You guys were the handbasket that took me straight to hell. But,
all right.
All right.
It was a very eye-opening couple of years. My wife and I both kind of went through an apostasy together. And now we both, at least in the comfort of our own homes, consider ourselves atheists. Now, my coworkers at work, they know that I'm an atheist. They are as well. Some close friends that we have here that know we are atheists, but my parents do not. We are not financially dependent on them. They are kind of a safety net. They are definitely, they're well off financially. They were well off financially enough, luckily, to go to some of the best cancer doctors in the country and beat the disease.
Isn't it amazing how
safety net?
Isn't it amazing how God's favor flows toward the people that have the financial resources to access excellent medical care?
Yeah. Well, God doesn't give a damn about the poor.
Yeah.
By the way, shameless partial self-promotion. Are you familiar with ReasonCon?
I am, actually. I've heard you talk about it.
Yeah.
I haven't actually, participated or anything.
Well, it's a good opportunity for me to say this. If you go to reasonnc.com, that's the website for ReasonCon, which is coming up in April in Hickory, North Carolina.
Nice.
So April 21st and 22nd, and you'll get to see, if you go, Lawrence Krauss, Callie Wright, Aaron Ra, Jim Craig, Shelley Siegel, Bobby C. They're going to show some god-awful movies, and I'm there. So
nice.
But I don't want to. Magic? Well, yeah, it's harder to get me to not do magic than it is to do it. So.
Perfect.
So what did you? Apart from the story, did you have a question or something that we needed to address?
I do. My parents were wonderful growing up. I have a very close relationship with them. I still do. They were instrumental in getting me where I am. I have a job now that's kind of a dream come true. I love it. And they helped get me here. I feel like having this conversation with them is going to be devastating to that relationship. It's not going to be good at all. So I was calling just to I know you give.
Are you talking about a coming out conversation?
As an atheist, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why do you feel that you need to come out to your parents?
Well, I guess maybe she kind of put together stuff that I was posting on Facebook, or I don't know if somehow word got back to her. About 6 months ago, she called me on a day off to specifically ask me if I was an atheist.
Okay.
And I panicked, and I told her no.
Okay.
And I'm kind of ashamed. I'm kind of ashamed of that. I told her that I had questions and that I was doubting, and kind of, we had questions about the flood. We had questions about why do you even need prayer? I'd rather know something than believe something. And the more questions I asked, the more frustrated she got, and she'd end up hanging up on me. So then we kind of just haven't had that conversation since.
Okay.
I feel like I'm not, it's kind of like one of these things is I feel ashamed of myself because I hid who I actually am.
You lied to your mom.
So in order to, I did.
Yeah.
I lied to my mom, and I feel bad about that. And
I feel bad every time I do
it. I need to have that conversation, if nothing else for myself. Maybe it's selfish, but it's just, every time I think I'm going to do it, I don't. And the courage to actually have that conversation has wavered. And so I thought maybe you guys would have some advice for those first steps of kind of easing into that.
Well, I think that you're being a little too hard on yourself with the guilt trip.
Okay.
That's one thing. I mean, there are reasons to lie to parents sometimes, and sometimes we lie to people to protect them because when they ask those questions, a lot of people don't really want to know the answer. Now, my view is that if you ask a question and you get the answer you didn't want, well, you did ask the question. So, if you had told her, yes, I'm an atheist, and it had been devastating for her, you would now be feeling bad because you told her the truth and it hurt her.
Right.
Even though she asked. So, you're beating yourself up because you were, I guess, at your own expense, being a little compassionate toward your mom. And I don't think you need to beat yourself up about that.
One of the things, when she hung up on you, just because you were doubting, that probably adds to this a bit.
Yeah.
The one thing so first of all, I'm encouraging anybody to come out and be open and honest about who they are, provided that they are comfortable with it and feel safe and aren't going to, lose. They're willing to accept whatever happens, I'm happy to have people cut from my life if they don't like me for who I am. I care more about them liking me for who I am. But that's not true for everybody. There are people who value the relationship more than, an honesty about who you are. So one thing that needs to happen is you need to find out, you need to consider whether or not your mom wants to have this conversation at all. Because and there's no easy way to do that. I mean, you could go, hey, Mom, I lied to you earlier, or I was questioning at the time, or whatever, but I'm actually an atheist. And if you want to talk about it, that's fine. And if you don't, it doesn't change how I feel about you. Is about as good as you could do to try to find. Hey, Jen, would you like to have a conversation about X? As soon as you say it, it's like saying, don't think of an elephant, and immediately you're thinking of an elephant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if she's...
It's one of those things...
I was going to say, if she has basically... it sounds like almost like she has shut the door on the conversation for now because she's not ready to deal with it.
Okay.
And I don't think you need to feel obligated to have this conversation with her if you're not ready to have it and if she's not ready to have it.
There is another way. Okay. You don't have to begin with the, hey, I lied to you before, I'm actually a godless heathen, do you want to talk about it? You could, when it seems like the right time, say, Mom, you remember that phone conversation we had where you asked me about this and I expressed, that I was having doubts and concerns and you ended the conversation. I just want to let you know that I'm happy to continue that conversation, but I don't want to push that conversation on you about my doubts. Yeah. And then you're not, scaring her with the A word or anything else. You're referencing a conversation that felt unfinished because it was, and seeing if she has any interest in continuing that conversation. Because one of the things is you're free to say, you can show up at Christmas dinner and whoo, I'm an atheist to everybody in the room. You can do that. It's not recommended. I don't know what that actually accomplishes. Right. But showing your mom that you care about her and you're willing to have a conversation with her, and that it's bothered you a little bit that this conversation, ended abruptly, but that you don't want to force her in an uncomfortable situation, that might get you closer to. The other thing that I've recommended for many times in the past, and I know, I'm pretty sure Jen's recommended this too, is I think it's a mistake personally to make coming out as a non-believer a big deal and a sit-down type affair.
Yeah.
I think, personally, I think that a better way is just keep being yourself more and more, and to honestly answer questions when they come up. And at some point, they're going to go, wait a minute, are you saying you don't believe in God? And you can say, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And instead of this abrupt, sit down, Mom, I have something to tell you. Right. Your Bible is full of crap.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because that makes it seem like it's a much more kind of, dramatic or momentous decision than maybe it is for you. I mean.
Right.
I mean, for a lot of people, shedding.
It was pretty gradual, but.
For a lot of people, shedding their religious beliefs is a big deal because they were heavily indoctrinated and, and they were really psychologically harmed by their religious beliefs. It doesn't sound like that was the case for you, and so
it was not.
Okay, so this
it was a very loving child. Like I said, we were. If anyone had asked, we were Christian. Did we have Bible verses every night before I went to bed? No, we were kind of middle of the road. All of that changed after the cancer diagnosis.
And I totally get that because that was kind of like my childhood. My father and my stepmother would actually go through these periods where, we got to get right with God. And so, we'd go find some new church to go to or whatever. And they would sometimes drag us off to this church until I got old enough to push back on that.
Right.
And part of my pushing back on that was, at the time, I identified as Episcopalian. And so I would tell them, nope, I'll go to the Episcopalian church, but I won't go to this Presbyterian church you guys got a wild hair and want to try. And so, I got away with it after I got old enough. But later in life, I guess they were staring down the barrel of mortality and decided to seriously get into this religion thing. My father was in his 60s when he decided to become a lay minister. And he was actually going to go to seminary and become an ordained minister. And then he got a cancer diagnosis, which he did not survive. But yeah, I mean, they just kind of went off the deep end into this religion thing. It was kind of bizarre. Right. But, because that was never something that was part of the childhood that I had.
It definitely happened like that, on my end with all of a sudden they were evangelical. And a lot of because of that, because we were so casual, then sometimes we would go to Sunday school and the Sunday school teacher would tell us that we didn't need to be casual. And then I would be afraid for my entire family's eternal souls. So, and there are people.
I have someone really close to me who was told by their grandmother that God was going to punish them by giving them cancer. For their wicked ways. Now, I know that not every religion and not every religious family does that. One of the things, when the conversation comes up, I would say that for me, the preferred frame of mind is not, here's why you're wrong, but here's why I don't agree with you. Those are different.
Okay.
And not only that, but if you're going to be diligent about properly applying the burden of proof, you can't demonstrate that they're wrong. They just haven't been able to demonstrate that they're right. And I would really, I know people have done this and I've thought like this before. Hey, if the cancer comes back, you're going to stop believing in God? That may not be a good thing because, quite honestly, if the cancer does come back, they're probably just going to be convinced that they slipped in their walk and that God's given them a reminder. Because the truth of the matter is, the way most, especially Protestant Christianity works, is you're never right with God. You couldn't possibly be. You could just keep trying and trying and trying. And also, as much as I might use this in a conversation with somebody else, and say, hey, what kind of asshole is it who gives you cancer because you didn't understand and weren't loving them enough? that might not be the conversation that you'd want to have with your mom either. This needs to be about your relationship with your mom and getting to a point where the fact that you guys don't agree on this shouldn't be a dramatic hindrance to a relationship.
Yeah. And I will tell you that in the case of my dad and I never, I guess, formally had the conversation about me being an atheist. He figured it out because, he wasn't a perfect...
Because you were doing a TV show. No.
He figured it out before I was even on the TV show. But, I mean, part of the deal on that was that for all his faults, he was not a stupid man. And, I mean, he could read between the lines with what I was, how I was expressing myself and everything when the topic of religion came up.
And the same thing with my mom, too. She knows me well enough to know that I always have I don't post anything without a reason. And so when I post something like, quoting Carl Sagan, I would rather know than believe.
Yeah.
She kind of, I wasn't being super discreet about it, but she of course picked up on that.
Yep.
And so it led to this conversation. The only other thing in all of this is, my grandmother comes into consideration here as well. I know that aside from it ruining our relationship, possibly, that, it could be to where we don't talk, that she's angry, that the only thing she ever says is Bible verses. I do know that it will also terrify them.
Yeah.
Because they are going to believe wholeheartedly that I'm going to hell.
Yeah. And I do think that my father was probably legitimately terrified for my eternal soul. Okay? There's nothing I can do about that. What I do know is that at some point, he and I both made the same calculation that our disagreement on this topic was not worth sacrificing our relationship. And so it never negatively influenced my relationship with my father.
One of the things is that Greta Christina wrote a book about coming out, and she talked to like 400 people, and literally only one person actually regretted coming out, despite the fact that many of them had terrible experiences for some period of time. My relationship with my parents will never be what it was. There's a sort of new normal. We get along. We love each other. I visited with them over the holidays. They come down here. We just don't talk about
that up too.
Yeah, my relationship with my grandmother is awesome.
Christmas. Yeah. Okay. When I was kind of going back and forth on how to celebrate Christmas with my family, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm an atheist. I'm not going to sit down in church with my mom and dad if they want to go and listen to all that. I'm just not going to do it. And then I heard you just say casually on your show before Christmas that, I'll probably go to church with my mom and dad, that, I just want to spend time with them. And they ended up not going to church, as ironically as that is.
It's not that much of a surprise.
I just remember thinking,
Beth and I did a video on Christmas. There's a lot of churches that just shut down on Christmas because everybody's off visiting family.
I remember you saying it was a good business decision to not turn the heat on when there's not going to be that many people there anyway. Yeah. But that made it easier for me, that you were just like, if they want to go to church, I want to spend time with them, we'll just go to church. It's not like they're going to change I believe. And so,
I don't have any fear of going into a church.
You're being the bigger person.
I don't have any fear of going into a church either, because I'm walking in there and they know I don't believe. And I didn't catch fire when I walked in, which already challenges some of their presumptions. But it also shows that I care enough to spend time with them. While I despise religions. I absolutely despise religions. I despise almost everyone you could possibly name because of what I see it doing to minds and encouraging. But I don't despise religious people, or at least not all of them. And in going and doing this and participating, in Christmas or even a christening or whatever, I'm a godparent to someone. But it was very clear that when I accepted this, they know I'm accepting this in an entirely secular fashion. How could you possibly be a secular godparent? Oh, it's easy. The label doesn't matter. I'm the person who, if something tragic happens to them, I've agreed to look out for their kids. And they have to be comfortable knowing that if they die, their kids are going to be raised by a godless heathen. So maybe, if they ask me, they're probably okay with it. So it's never easy.
A tremendous amount of thank you. I already had a tremendous amount of respect for you, Matt. But when you said that, it was like, oh, He's just being the bigger person. So that was a big deal in this household. But thank you guys for taking the time to talk with me. It's something that we struggle with and probably won't be immediately resolved, but I definitely will take all of this to heart and keep up the good work with the show. It means a lot to all of us. And for people that say you're not going to change anyone's mind, that why do you have these debates and why do you have these discussions? That person's not going to convert to atheism. Well, somebody might, and I did. So thank you all for what you do.
Thanks, Chris. Last quick notes.
Right.
If you decide to do this and come out, be patient. Recognize that you are the person in the relationship who has changed. That doesn't make it your fault, but that they have been hit with something that's unexpected. Give them some time to figure out that you're still you and you still love them and you still want a relationship. But don't give them too much time and don't give them too much control over your life. I know Dan, I've forgotten his name, recommends a year like for coming out gay and let everybody be shitty to you for a year and then draw the line and say...
Dan Savage?
Yes, Dan Savage, sorry. Yep. I've been patient. I've done everything here. If you're going to continue to be this way towards me, then you have to start drawing lines. But recognize what the situation is, that you're not to blame, that you're going to have to be a little patient, and that you also are going to have your limit because this is your life and you're not going to be mistreated by somebody, whether or not they happen to be a blood relative or not. But
okay.
Thanks for the call, Chris. Good luck.
Definitely sounds like a plan. Yeah. Thank you guys so much.